we can multitask. So we've been doing issues with regard to marriage, with regard to life, with regard to spending, reducing the size of our government to make sure that we don't spend more than we take in. It's very common sense things, and that's kind of the focus of the House anyway.
Next is Tom Hawkins-Smith, Polk County Supervisor.
Sure, thank you. Tom Hawkins-Smith, a lot of you probably know, represent most of eastern Polk County, not only Altoona, but East Des Moines, as well as Pleasant Hill, Bondurant, Mitchellville, Elkhart, Haldeman, Runnels, Polk City, pretty much all the unincorporated area all the way to the Jasper County line. We've been working on the budget, as most local governments have been for the last few months now. We just wrapped up the budget process this week. We have a budget certification date of March 15th, which we will meet with a public hearing yet this month. I can tell you today that we will have a balanced budget without an increase in our tax rate, without any reductions in services. So, having said that, it's becoming more and more difficult. This year went into the budget process, and if we allocated every single cent to every department, every office that we allocated last year and the year before, we have a $3.9 million shortfall. So we asked the departments to come in at a target, which would include everything that they had last year, no increases in services, and them to pick up 25% of that shortfall. We'll pull down from the rainy day fund to fund the rest of that for this year. I said last year, I'll say again this year, we can't do that year after year after year. So, but this year we're okay. We have healthy reserves. We have a AAA bond rating. We continue the budget process, and like I said, we completed it this week. A couple of the other things, I don't know if we need to go into the three major issues we're working on. One of the other things we're working on right now is courts. And this has been an ongoing issue for space for the courts. The county has a statutory responsibility to provide suitable space for the courts, and that's not happening and hasn't been happening. So we brought in the National Center for State Courts about 18 months ago, and OPN Architects, and we're taking a look at options. We had a failed referendum a few years ago. It was a very expensive proposal, included building a new courthouse annex to the south of the historic Polk County Courthouse. It did fail, but like I said, we still have a responsibility to provide space. So we're looking at other options now. One of the options we're considering, what I think is a good option, is reuse of the old main jail, just west of the historic Polk County Courthouse. We had the architects come in and make a proposal this week that would include removal of floors 5 through 8, be able to add 14 criminal courtrooms, move all criminal court procedures into the old main jail. You have the synergy of the tunnel that attaches the buildings, have civil courts into a renovated historic Polk County Courthouse. And we thought initially that we need about 130,000 more square feet, but now we're getting into the process a little deeper. We probably won't need that much if we're able to do those two projects. Now, whatever we decide has to go to the taxpayers. So that's a proposal that will be put together and brought before the taxpayers at some point. The last thing I want to talk about, the Betts Auditorium remodel project. I can go back a ways on where we're at with this project and why we're doing it, but the project has been started. All the demolition is completed on the inside of the building, and they're starting construction to move the Polk County Convention Complex venue up to and inside Veterans Auditorium. That's going to be completed January 3rd of next year with an opening then. So those are the three major issues. There are many others, but I'd be happy to take questions after everybody's done. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see such a great group. I don't think we ever have this many.
Usually around 40, 45, so this is good.
Senator, would you please talk up?
Sure. Well, the three issues that, I represent Eastern Polk County and all of Jasper. And I've served in the General Assembly. This will be my 29th year. Too long for some of you, I'm confident. Personally, I don't believe in term limits. When you're through with me, you can vote me out. I have much other work to do. On the private side, I'm involved extensively in international trade and spend tremendous amounts of time everywhere from Korea, Japan, China, Thailand, Vietnam, and so on. What we do is sell pig skins, pork, and Iowa ag products. and no one in the history of the General Assembly has been involved in the sale of more ag products than I. That may sound vain, but I'm very proud of it. Collectively, from the past 18 years, I've been involved in the sale of $10 billion worth of Iowa agriculture. Three issues that we in the Senate are dealing with, and we have a very slim majority. It's 26-24. And some may say, well, Senator Gronstal has got to really keep you all in order. I don't work for Senator Gronstal. I work for my constituents and I work for my own conscience. And that's the way it will continue to be, pure and simple. Good example would be the issue of federal deductibility. 2 years ago, I was the vote in the Senate that would have passed the bill. That would preclude your ability to deduct on your state income tax form the federal taxes you pay. And my friends, I voted no in caucus. I advised them why, and the bill never came out. And you can be glad it did. To me, truly, it was a tax on a tax on money you never received. Democrats in the Senate are #1 on education. Governor Gronstal and I were in Japan in 1997, and he said to me one day, let's go visit school. We went to that school, and it was an experience I'll never forget. Young people, 3 years of age, standing, so cute, and their hair cut straight across, straight down, straight through the back, coal black hair, going through the other grades, and getting to the grades that we would call about 3rd grade. And they did not want to speak Japanese. In graduate school, I took Japanese. I tried to speak Japanese to them. They did not want to. They wanted them to speak English. The value of preschool is the fact that our youth have an opportunity to prepare during the most developmental time of their brain. Also, environmental protection. You know, we talk about money, and you think about the fact we spent $8 billion, state, federal money, to take care of the flooding. The environment has changed. And I'm not blaming this on global warming or anything else. I'm not that much of a scientist to make a definitive statement. But I can tell you, something's changed. And we're going to see this continue. We've got to protect our watersheds. You experienced it this year in Mud Creek. You experienced effluent coming back into the basements of your homes. I took 6 weeks off the campaign this year, spent it entirely in Altoona, in Bondurant, in Colfax, Reesner, Linville, and even as far south as Prairie City, trying to get programs together to help people. And one thing that's essential from my standpoint, being a rather hopefully pragmatic, centrist, try to be common sense Democrat, is that yes, we do need to look at the entire tax structure. But CBS, what is CB1? The CNBC study came out and said, quote, Iowa is #1 as the most favorable state in the U.S. to do business. And that was in the Des Moines paper yesterday. I enjoy this responsibility very much, work hard at it, take it very seriously, and I certainly will deal with any of you on face-to-face basis when it comes to questions and concerns, because that's the least I can give you is dialogue. Thanks.
Okay, well, that opens it up to the questions. I have had a few people that came up to me and had a few questions ahead of time. And this gentleman in the green shirt, would you like to start?
Hi, my name is Casper Ruby. I'm with the International Alliance of Theatrical State Employees, Local 67. We're located in Des Moines. We put on concerts as well as Fargo, plays at the Civic Center, and until recently, until this fiasco in the film industry, our members also worked in the Iowa film industry. Right now, there's not a single member of our union working on any film in Iowa since the closing of the Iowa Film Office. And we want to know if the legislation is going to come up with anything to help the Iowa film industry.
I can tell you that in the Senate, there is ongoing discussion because, folks, it's a proven fact that the film industry works. Now, you've got some scoundrels out there who took advantage of the situation and cost you, the taxpayers, and trust me, I pay a good deal of tax myself. A good deal of money, but you have to make sure that we have better direction from the state. Under the Culver administration, the individual that ran that program had a cardboard box sitting in the corner of his office, and that's where the receipts went. That was the scoundrel. That was the individual who failed to have the wherewithal to proceed and do things in a business-like manner, to allow the taxpayers of the state to pay for the limousine and the other amenities that they may be used to in California. This is not California. I do support the film industry. I hope we have an opportunity to get it up and moving again, because it is truly a value-added income producer for the state because of the type of people we have, the great diversity that we have in the state, and a tremendous ecosystem and area of waters, land, lakes, what have you, that people see can make a movie.
If I can say a couple things about that. I wanted to thank Pat Navin and Matt Ballard. I mean, they really helped to expose kind of the corruption that happened in the Iowa film industry and invited me to go and listen to how they're trying to reorganize it. What I'm seeing right now is that there are people who want to reorganize it, it looks like, but it seems like they want to have the same kind of thing going on. And so unless they change the structure of it, it's going to have the same problems. And I know that Matt Ballard is working on it, and so is Pat Navin, to make sure that we don't have those pass-through companies again. We don't have people coming in from, Canada. And so, I mean, I assume that they're going to keep working on that. And if we can get something better, then okay. But if it's going to be the same old stuff, it's just not going to work. And I know that Governor Branstad is interested in continuing the film industry. In the House, we have not talked about that. I'm not on the Economic Development Committee, so I'm not sure what they've done in the House in that regard.
Hopefully you'll support opening the Iowa Film Office, reopening that office soon.
I don't know what's happening with that. You know, it just has to be a different system than what it was. And it looks like the same people who ran it before are continuing to do it. Is that what you think, Matt?
There are things that need changed.
Yeah.
Teamsters have been working, and IOTC as well, have been working with a group called Film Alliance of Iowa. There are things that need corrected, and some of the people that are pushing some of the legislation don't have the true motives to do the right thing. They want to take care of themselves, and we can't let that happen. That's what we had before. Like I've been saying, when this film office stuff comes up, there are some things that we truly need to look at. For us, and believe me, we are all for film office. I've got 50 people that are out of work or working in Texas or Michigan or something right now because we don't have it. But it needs to have at least $1 million minimum on the productions, if not $3 million. It needs to have a total elimination of the pass-through companies, which I see as nothing more than the same thing drug dealers do with money laundering. And it needs to be based on putting actual Iowans to work. And there needs to be those incentives.
Right.
And as long as, you know, I'm working with the Film Alliance of Iowa, they aren't necessarily on board with that, but they're not opposed to it. And we've made it clear that unless those three things are met for the people of Iowa, that we can't support that proposal, and we will continue to work to get the right things done in the film office, because it was a great advantage for Iowans. And I appreciate all the discussions that we've had,
Yeah.
and the open ear that I've had.
You have a question up front?
I actually have, can I
That's
get
fine.
both of them
Sure.
now?
Yep.
It's Kim and Dennis. What are your views on the fair share bill that was defeated last year that requires non-union members that work in a union shop to pay for the benefits that they receive from the union? Right now, they've got a free ride. The unions can't just shuffle them off in a corner, because then you violate the laws and you can be sued, the union can be sued. Why don't we have a law that requires non-union people? Well, nobody's being required to join the union. We're just requiring them to pay for the benefits they have. We don't have kids in school, but I still pay a school tax. Should I be exempt from paying a school tax because I don't have kids in school? Someone paid for my education, so I'm paying for somebody else's education. What are your views on that, Kim and Dennis? Excuse me if I use your first name, but.
Oh,
No,
that's
it
fine.
doesn't offend you.
Sure.
Okay.
I support fair share. I also support repeal of right to work law. Chuck Gifford, who used to be the international rep for the United Auto Workers, made the statement to me once, and he's gone. He's deceased. But he made the statement. He said, "We will not see the repeal of the right to work law." And he said, "Frankly, I want people to belong to my union who want to belong." Now, with fair share, it is that. It's fair. Contrary to what people continue to tell you, it is not the repeal of the right to work law. Fair share says simply that you pay the union for the expenses that they accrue when a non-union member has a complaint or a problem or situation, and the union then has to go ahead and make that payment. I think that is fairness, and I really feel bad that there's a certain group of Iowans who feel that this is the repeal of the right to work. That is a lie.
Here we go. Okay, my view on it is that it goes back to the certification process. It goes back to whether or not a union has the sole negotiation. And if, you know, if they have that sole negotiation, then you're taking that away from the non-union people to negotiate. My idea, and I've talked to Matt about it, is this idea that, you know what, if you don't want to belong to the union, then let's let them have bargaining power themselves, so they can bargain and they can do their own negotiating. So if we had that kind of a system, we'd be better off. So I don't, I would not have supported the fair share, but it has not come up again. I don't think it is gonna be brought up in the, no, it's probably not gonna be brought up in the House.
Where I worked for 35 years, 5 months of 1 day before I retired, everything, I'm still a card-carrying union member. Everything we got, the company people got. If we got better insurance, they got better insurance. If we got an extra vacation week, they got extra vacation week. We were in effect negotiating a contract that they got for free. But it was their job to screw me out of as much money as they could on the benefit of them because of the bottom line. I don't care if you join my union, but don't expect my union to come running to your aid if you don't pay union dues. That's the way I feel. If you want to negotiate your own contract, go right ahead and do it. They won't even listen to you. They being management.
I agree.
If you have that right, you're gonna be standing out in the cold next time someone doesn't like you and you're on the street. And there won't be a thing we can do, or should we do, to help you out.
And what is your second question?
My second question is, what are your views on red light cameras and speed cameras? In yesterday's paper, there are 12 Republicans, which I know you are a Republican, that have banded together in hopes of putting an end to cameras. Years ago, there was an old television program called Beretta. Robert Blake, you can't do the time, don't do the crime. I've had 2 speeding tickets well, I started driving when I was 12 out in the country. My wife had never even had a parking ticket. We don't worry about cameras. If you drive 90 miles an hour, then you should worry about cameras. And this guy says, well, Brad Zahn, which he ought to go back to being mayor of Riverdale. He got a ticket that his son was speeding in Cedar Rapids. I don't know what the son's doing in Cedar Rapids, maybe he goes to college down there, I don't know. But he had to pay it, which is, I mean, let the boy pay it. But he's called it a cash cow. Well, also, Cedar Rapids is due to make almost $2 million on fines. So that's a lot of people that are speeding and a lot of people are running red lights. This officer right here, if you put her down on the intersection up here at the Hy-Vee, and in 30 minutes, if she had the time, she could write 30 tickets. So what are your views on red light cameras and speeding cameras?
You want me to go first? Okay. My view on red light speeding cameras is I see that actually as, not as a public safety issue, which it sounds like you're talking about, or maybe even a money-making issue. I see it more as a liberty issue. And what we're finding out with some of these companies, and they're like California, Colorado, they're not Iowa companies, they're making a lot of money on this. You know, the percentage they get is up to 40 to 50% on each ticket. So when they're reviewing something, they have a financial incentive to say, absolutely, there's a violation there. And it's hard for them to determine who's driving the car in some of the pictures. So I prefer officers. I don't like the cameras.
Well, I'm not one to hedge on an issue. And this, having been in law enforcement 35 years, I know that when people know the possibility exists that you could get caught, that reduces the temptation for them to do whatever they want to do. And you know, for some strange reason, I pull up to a stoplight or I'm coming up to it, I look up to see if there's a camera. I'll bet you're doing that too, aren't you?
No, I
And
just don't speak.
I think it has really made just the presence of those cameras. I think it's made us drive better. And I would guess that probably, should that come to a vote, it would be voted on in the House. I would doubt that it would make it through the Transportation Committee in the Senate. Senator Riley from Oskaloosa chairs that committee, and committee chairs have the authority to stop any bill from being debated and passed out of that committee and going then to the majority leader or majority leader of the House and then being debated because they control the agenda. So it's kind of a flip for me, but I guess I'm hoping it comes down heads because it's made us all more cautious. And who knows, it may have saved some lives.
A little bit of a follow-up. Steve Ketterling, Republican senator from Lakeview, says it smacks of big brotherism. Everything you people do is big brotherism. I have a niece that when her kids were growing up, she hated to put them in a trailer. She got picked up, I don't know how many times, and ticketed for not putting her kids in a child seat. You make us fasten our seatbelts. You make me drive a minimum of 40 miles an hour on the interstates. I'm 60, I'll be 70 years old. I'm not as old as you, Dennis, but I'll be 70 in March. Anything that's over that hill, if it won't wait for me, I don't want to see it anyway. I drive 60 miles an hour. The heck with the people behind me.
First off, when you say you, I know you're not talking to me.
I'm talking about you collectively.
Yeah, because I didn't.
Right, you did, but you
No.
will. You'll pass a bill that will change my life somehow.
And I hope it'll be making it easier for you.
I hope so.
Yeah, so I wouldn't pass those things, absolutely. But I wanted to say there is a mechanism, or there used to be a mechanism, by which if there were a majority of people in the Senate, for example, they could force a vote and pull something out of committee. So there is a mechanism that, you know, if you think a committee, if you think this is an important enough issue, you could have talked to some of the senators and said, force this out of committee so it can be a vote on the floor. I mean, they used to have that rule in the Senate, and I believe that it's been changed now. We still have that in the House, so not one person can stop something that the state thinks is important to go forward. So if you think that issue is important enough, I mean, you can see what happens in the Senate. I don't know, maybe Senator Black knows more about that.
That's correct, I do.
Okay, I do have a
May I
question.
say something about the liberty issue? Because I feel as though when people are speeding, they're stepping on my liberty. And when we all live in, when we live in populated communities, we come up with reasonable rules. For instance, that in this area, you might travel 35 miles an hour because there's a lot more population right here, or people crossing the street right here. So I don't think the cameras go against our community's liberty, because otherwise a lot of the speeding has become a lot more prevalent. And I just feel as though we need to find ways. And I don't think anybody's ready to hire a whole bunch of policemen to be out on the street. It'd be great, because then they'd have more money to spend on our products that we produce. But I don't think government's ready to put all kinds of policemen out there to take care of protecting those of us that want to be safe on the road.
I have a question that was from the audience. It says Obama healthcare will break us if the Supreme Court doesn't declare it unconstitutional. What are our options as a state? And it says your name on the front.
Oh, good, okay. Well, this week was kind of an exciting week in the House, and what we did is we passed a Healthcare Freedom Act, which basically said that we have the power to tell the federal government, you can't force us to buy insurance. Now, I know the floor manager on that debate limited it to the portion where we have to buy health insurance or else they'll tax us. And so that passed, and actually we had a few Democrats that joined in and on that vote as well. So I don't think it went far enough. In my estimation, we absolutely, as a state, as a sovereign state, have the power to tell the federal government that that's an unconstitutional mandate, and we will not partake in it. It's not just the fact that they're forcing us to buy health insurance. It's also the fact that they want to have all small businesses file 1099 forms, and that's going to be happening next year. If you buy or sell $600 worth of product from anyone, you're going to be asked to do the additional work of sending in 1099s to the IRS. It is absolutely going to hurt small businesses. They cannot absorb that extra burden, the extra tax burden to do that. The other thing is they've taken over student loans. So, you know, you're not going to be able to go unless you know, of course you can borrow from your neighbors or your family, but if you want to get a student loan, you're going to have to go through the government. I mean, that's all part of this 2,000-page healthcare bill. The other thing that's hidden in there is real estate. There's going to be a 3.8% tax when you sell your property. I don't know if most people know that's in the healthcare bill. So there are many of those issues that I think impinge on our freedom, and the state absolutely can stand up and say, states' rights, 10th Amendment, you cannot do that to us.
Would you cite the section on the real estate tax?
I don't have that handy, but
Could you get it?
you know it?
No, I don't know the statute, but that's not true. There's a
You don't think that-
There's a 3.8% tax on investments that businesses now pay for capital gains taxes is what the tax is on. There's no 3.63%, there's no 3.8% tax on real estate.
Oh, that
It's on the
would
property.
be, it would be on investment
On the
property.
property,
Yes.
selling your.
So if you
property.
hold
See,
a
and I
piece
had
of
a lot
property.
Realtors tell me that this is really gonna be
And
detrimental.
they're absolutely wrong.
It's sales tax.
It is a sales tax on
Is it a
3.8%
sales-
sales tax.
Not from $1.
At the time of the sale, the price of the
Not from
house.
$1.
Well,
It doesn't even come
we
close.
can produce the
I
documents.
wish
Shouldn't be $1 any. Why did they earn that money? That's your money.
I'm just telling you what it is. I'm
I
not defending
understand,
it
but
one
why
way
are
or
you
another.
defending
I'm
it?
just saying what you're
You
saying
got another
is
politician
not
stealing
true.
from you.
Well, then 3.8%, 3.8%.
Sounds like a tax.
It's there. It's a tax.
It's not true.
You don't think it's a,
You got the paper?
I can bring it. I can
Well,
produce
that,
it for you.
yeah, I mean,
I'm just
Why
telling you.
don't you go ahead and bring that on the 5th of next month?
Well, I thought she would at least know the law. She's speaking on it. I thought you would know what you're
you
talking
know,
about.
she
that
does.
wasn't
We
very-
ain't getting anywhere
She
doing
does
this.
not.
Let's do some research before next
Yeah.
time, and then we will talk
We can
about
talk
it.
about that.
What would you be your plan on the state level to deal with the uninsured health population? Because it's just getting worse. Employers are pushing more on to the employees, and, you know, any chance they can get, they're gonna get out of it. So we're gonna have more and more, it's just gonna get worse.
This whole system is set up for that purpose of getting more and more people onto the state. And
they get more
you're
bang for
getting
their
a lot of
buck.
insurance people that are leaving the state. I mean, they're no longer even providing healthcare insurance. I mean, we lost Principal, closed down their healthcare insurance thing. So it's actually not causing,
But in a pragmatic way, okay, you're putting people on this, what are we gonna do on the state level to deal with people who are uninsured? It's just gonna get worse and worse and worse. The costs skyrocket. You know, I don't wanna go into the whole healthcare companies and the costs, you know, but that's the only sector in the stock market during the recession that made money, was the health sector.
in the government.
yeah, you know, I was talking to the president of Broadlands, and he said when we were talking about, I think it was Wellmark that wanted to raise it to 11% on their insurance rates, to raise it to 11%. He said, Kim, you know, our costs have not gone up. We have not seen that many more people. We have not had, we've held at a bottom line. Why is the insurance companies continuing to increase the rates? So that's where the problem is. I don't really see it as a problem of that many more people going to the hospital. And I know that we're looking at trying to figure it out, and we're redoing our mental health delivery system, because at the county level, we're having trouble with that. So, you know, the Republicans are looking into how we can help.
We're talking about sick people going to see their doctor and not going because they don't have the money.
Yeah.
Well,
And then they put it off, and they put it off, and then they end up in the ER, running up a $300,000 bill that we all pay.
Yes, Don.
They all have the option to go to the emergency room, and the law requires that they're being taken care
Oh,
of.
they'll get taken care of, but the
But when they
bill-
go to the emergency room, you end up as taxpayers paying for it anyway.
Yeah.
It's when you want to pay it. And I don't hear
paying it
any
no matter
solutions.
what.
I only hear you talking about what's wrong with the bill. Let's hear solutions for the people
Yeah,
uninsured
that's
and the
always
working
been-
poor.
Don't we have broad lines in Iowa City for the uninsured? how many
And who
people with
pays for
insurance
that?
get broad
Who's
lines?
gonna
Yeah.
for health care?
If
That's
you can choose your
tax
health care, is it broad lines or is it Mercy?
But we're still paying for
You're
broad
paying
lines in
for it.
Iowa City. Let's get real about it if you're gonna say something.
But how many people with no health insurance have satellite TV, and cell phones, and all this decisions?
Come on.
I mean, I don't want to hear about how they've got 300 channels on their television. I have an antenna in my bedroom. That's what I got, because that's what I can afford. Yeah, I mean, why don't you make a decision for yourself, instead of expecting me to bail you out so you can watch ESPN?
Okay, let's stop for a minute and get back to order, okay? I think that's really important. All right, I do have a gentleman that came up to me a little bit ago. Do you want to ask your question?
Sure. Mine's to Tom. Tom, I work nights. Why can't the judges and the clerks do something down through courthouse instead of me having to take a day off or other people to do the same thing? Why can't they have night court clerks have a, you know?
Sure, that's a good question. Let me first of all tell you that the 5th Judicial District is not governed by Polk County Board of Supervisors. They are employees of the 5th Judicial District, which is a branch of state government. So we cannot, as supervisors, mandate what shifts that they run at the Polk County Courthouse. Judge Gamble takes care of that. Having said that, when the National Center of State Courts came in and did a complete overview of our judicial system to find every efficiency that we could before we looked at space issues, that's one of the things they looked at. Across the country, examples have shown that night court costs more money than it saves. It's not efficient. Otherwise, we would at least encourage them to participate in that. It hasn't shown that it saves money.
But it's convenient. I don't have to take a day. People don't have to take a day off. You know, we're losing. The people are losing. I mean, there are servants, not the other way around. You know, I'm having to take a day off. You know, other people having to take a day off. And so they look at it as so the courts, but look at the population, 300 million people in the United States. You know, that's getting drug into the court system. I mean, do they look at is that study including me losing money?
It looked at finding every efficiency to provide the services that we are required to provide within our judicial system. Once again, I want to emphasize that the 5th Judicial District court system does not answer to the Polk County Board of Supervisors. They're not employees of or a branch of county government.
So we're getting billed for it. If they want to put up a new courthouse, they're saying you got to put it up or you got to expand, then we get the bill for it.
Well, that will go to referendum. We had a referendum once, and the taxpayers weighed in, and it failed, okay? The issue has not gone away. I don't know if you've been through the courthouse lately and saw the cramped spaces and things like that and the environment that they work in. Our charge is to make sure that we provide efficient space needs for the courts at least expense to the taxpayers as possible. Frankly, I wasn't surprised that the referendum failed a few years ago. I talked to some of the judges about that referendum and going out to groups like these, and I've attended over 700 meetings in my district since I got elected. So I had a pretty good handle on how people felt about that $130 million proposal. And frankly, I assumed it was going to fail, and it did, rather miserably, I might add. But having said that, we feel like this proposal that we're talking about now, we could address court needs for the next 20 to 25 years for less than half of what was proposed in that initial referendum. But once again, whatever proposal we have will go before the taxpayers of Polk County to determine whether they think it's the best idea or not.
I have another question. It's the Senator Black, why won't the Senate vote on impeachment and gay marriage issues?
The first point related to impeachment. And you must know that impeachment, as per Constitution, must begin in the House. So, let the House do what they want. If the House wishes to impeach the remaining 4 judges, go for it. I then cannot speak too much to this beyond that point, because frankly, I then will stand in judgment of the actions of the House should they impeach those 4 judges. 7 members of the House are sent over to the Senate at the end of the legislative session. Those 7 members would make the case for their impeachment. All members of the Senate who feel in their heart that they can stand before Iowans and take an oath stating that they will stand as the judge collectively and approach this in a appropriate, non-biased, non-partisan way. I can tell you that I will do that. And that is take that oath should they impeach. But the Senate has nothing to do with impeachment. Nothing. Zero. Other than if it occurs in the House, we then make the judgment in the Senate, and it requires, say, 2/3 or super majority in the Senate for that impeachment to actually keep those judges from sitting on the court. Once they're impeached in the House, they leave that position. And actually, should that occur, the governor then would appoint people to sit in their place. Our Constitution, as relates to that, is hanging by a thread. And I would suggest that in view of that particular question, as relates to impeachment, that you ask Representative Pearson. Sorry, yeah. Okay. As relates to the issue of gay marriage, same-sex marriage. This has been an extremely difficult issue for me. I was born and raised in the West. I came from a pretty conservative Republican family. During Vietnam, I changed my party affiliation. I go back to the point where, am I here, do I accept this responsibility position as a true voice of people, or do I do it from my conscience after evaluating every segment I can? And folks, I look you all in the eye and in your heart and tell you I do that. Because many days I think, what an honor to be one of 50, to be a voice of the people in the Iowa General Assembly. But we're not all going to agree on every issue, are we? We will not agree on every issue. And you have to accept that. It occurs whether it's city council or your board of supervisors or the Congress of the United States, and what's transpiring in the world. The reason that the issue of same-sex marriage is not and will not be debated in the Iowa Senate is because under our system of government, the majority leader of the respective house has the authority, whether it be in the states or in Congress, to determine the agenda of what shall or shall not be debated. And so you can have the House pass, as they just did with HJR 6, and it passed 62 to 49, right? 39.
37.
Okay. It passed. And it comes to the Senate, and this gets back to her original point earlier of, in the Senate, there was the opportunity to pull things out of committee and force them onto the floor. That's not true. And I'm not calling you a liar, naturally. I'm just simply saying that's not the case. I served in the House 12 years. When every controversial issue, someone would stand and say, I move to suspend the rules to do this, that, or the other thing. We would spend our entire day with people suspending the rules and the majority party voting that down. The Senate Minority Leader, Republican, Mr. McKinley, Paul McKinley, made the statement following the rule, not change, but verification in the Senate, that why is everyone so worked up about this? Because whether you maintain the current rules or change the rules, it's not going to change the way things done. The majority leader, you could pull a bill from committee, it would go on the calendar, and the majority leader still makes a decision as to what the agenda will be and what will be debated.
With all due respect, sir, you're talking about committees, subcommittees. This bill, it's pointless to even go into committee. I was in the debate when House Joint Resolution 6 was being debated, and Representative Masher, Democrat, said, don't worry, I know you're going to pass this today, but Gronstal will not debate this. Don't talk about committees because it's not, I mean, it's not even, that's not the point here. The point is that you are referring to your conscience and that you're voting by your conscience. You're supposed to be our voice, not the voice instead of us. You're our voice, and instead you're using, you know, I mean, Representative Pearson is trying to hand the decision back to us so we can make the decision. You're saying, I know better than you, I'm the voice instead of you. You don't have a say. You're saying your voice doesn't matter, my voice is what matters.
Yes.
I didn't really say that. What I said was the fact that the question asked was, why is it not voted on in the Senate? And my point is because the majority leader will not allow it.
Don't you have you spoken with him about it? Do you believe that we have the power to vote? Do you believe that we should decide? You have the power to meet with him. I'm sure he's your, he's your comrade. You work with him. You interact with him on a daily basis. You have the power to go to him and say, this is what needs to happen.
Many of us have in the past to simply get the issue over with.
But what's your conscience say on the issue?
What's my conscience telling me?
Yeah.
Sure. Happy.
A yes or no? Simple answer.
Happy to tell you.
Are you in
No, I'm
favor
not
or
going to
against?
give you a yes or no.
I don't want to speak.
Point of order.
The issue of same-sex marriage has been a difficult one for me because of the way I was brought up. I have to shave every morning and look at myself in the mirror. And frankly, I was in support of passing the right for the public to vote. It's been over a period of years. I voted for DOMA. Do you know what DOMA is?
Gronstal
You
did
should.
too.
Defense of Marriage Act. I voted for the Defense of Marriage Act. And then I started thinking about my background. Second most important man in my life was my brother-in-law. My wife and her family came from Utah. Very, very poor family. My wife's father was born in 1882. My wife's grandmother passed over the plains with Brigham Young. So you can see he sired her when he was 62, and there were 3 younger than she. So the family was raised by the oldest man, David, wonderful man, and we did not know he was gay. Few families, very few families, do not have a gay person somewhere within their family. One night, 1984, I received a phone call, and David had been murdered. What had happened was 2 drug-crazed kids from California came to a bar at the head of Ogden Canyon in Ogden, Utah, went into the bar and said, "We want to trash a queer." And it so happened there was someone in there that said, "Well, my understanding is that blonde man who lives just up the street is queer." So they went up and broke into David's house, took him up Ogden Canyon, broke into a cabin, tied him to a chair, cut off his finger to get his father's ring, poured gasoline on him, and burned him alive. And they then returned to the same bar and were bragging about it. There happened to be 2 plainclothes policemen. And they had these 2 en route to the police station already acknowledging what they did. Death penalty is Utah, firing squad. This was just after Gary Gilmore had been shot. And my mother-in-law went before the judge and she pleaded with them. And she said, "It is not in our faith that these 2 should be taken. Please give them life in prison without parole, because at Point of the Mountain Prison in Utah, it's hell on earth." And that's where they sit today. So I think of David, again, what a wonderful man who raised my wife's family, 9 children and hers, and from a previous wife, 9 others. 17 brothers and sisters, 18 total. I've had to deal with the issues related to my church. I'm a Mormon. And the Latter-day Saint Church feel that one man, one woman, one time. One time. We don't take in our vows till death do you part. Our vows state simply for time and eternity. You really better make sure you make the right choice. After giving significant, substantial thought to the issue and the fact that my friends, and I'm telling you simply my feeling, the Supreme Court made the decision for me. Anyone in here with a background in jurisprudence should well know, understand, and accept that. And those who have taken a basic civics course, that we have an executive, a judicial, and a legislative branch. The governor implements the law, the legislature creates the law, and the judiciary interprets the law based on the Constitution. When you have 7 individuals who, following Judge Hanson's decree on DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act passed in the late 90s. And by the way, Matt McCoy, a gay member of the Senate, voted yes. Tom Vilsack voted yes. I voted yes. Most did. Judge Hanson then ruled that that was unconstitutional based upon the what's the word? Pardon? Yeah, equal protection issue. And then, of course, it went to the Iowa Supreme Court, and 7 individuals, 2 of whom are individually very anti-same-sex marriage. All 7 voted unanimously based upon their calling and the oath they took. And therefore, I've given this issue more thought than most people, because most people were right there immediately with an answer. And I would say then, in a final statement, finally, you asked for yes or no.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. I appreciate your answer.
That those of you who support same-sex marriage, God bless you. I have no hardness in my heart whatsoever for the way you feel, because that's what makes America great. But when we do the Pledge of Allegiance, liberty and justice for all, and so many things that we do, and I'm a writer. I've written so much. I mean, a lady here wanted a book. Here's my latest book. And I deal with the issues that relate to the Civil War, the blacks, the times, the inequities, the historic facts and details related to why we have gotten to where we are today. And we're different, we're diverse. And I think back over my work worldwide and work in so many states in this United States for the U.S. Forest Service, USAID, and other groups, that when has a gay person ever adversely affected me? I cannot think of the time. So with that, I'll stop. And
Can I turn this into one simple question that won't take very long to answer?
Yep, and then we do have to get back to some
Okay.
things that are submitted.
Just a pretty simple question. First of all, you mentioned the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will state that the Pledge of Allegiance also says that it's under God, that being the key issue.
Inserted with Eisenhower.
The question that I have for you is, you represent thousands of people who aren't asking you to specifically, many of them are, want you to take a stand one way or the other. What they're asking for is a chance to vote. So my question to you is, will you go to Senator Gronstal for the people and encourage him to let us vote?
I have, and his answer was no.
Will you do it again?
Will you continue?
Why?
Because we're not
What's the
giving up.
point?
Because we're not giving up.
Have a right to vote.
We have a right.
Then
The-
you
the-
elect people to get this passed at the Senate.
Which is
You-
why
you
we
take
have,
your turn
which is
next
why
time.
we have 3 judges who are no longer judges. But
We'll get to that.
the people have a right to vote. Our Constitution, everything about our government was established for the people. The government's authority doesn't usurp the people. So our question is, will you go again? Because we want you to. We want you to continue to go.
I don't want you to.
There's a lot.
Not the people that know anything about it.
There's a lot of us that think
Or
that we
history,
should do
or-
business.
Would you have the people to sign?
Next question.
I do have a lady back here that has a question.
I just have one thing to say. I think a lot of people here are trying to judge other people, and I think if you're Christians and you look in your Bible, it says that God judges people.
We're not trying to judge, we want a chance to them. Maybe they're not Christians here.
And you do really have to forgive
Or
yourself.
maybe those that say
But
are.
the fact remains that you stood up here in the beginning of your speech, and you did say that you were representing the people because of your conscience.
And
you
his
would
conscience.
represent the
And
people.
his conscience.
And the people, and the fact remains that there is a law, which you stated, DOMA, out there on the books, but there is also sorry, having a hard time. There's a decision that was handed down by the Supreme Court, and they are in conflict with each other. And all anyone here wants is the right to
Not
vote.
everyone.
So because you stood up and stated that you're here representing the people out of your own conscience, we just want to know, why won't you go to Gronstal and say, let the people vote?
My dear, how many times do I need to tell you that I have? And the issue of representing the people can get to be a pretty subjective thing, because you get calls, you get emails, you get personal contacts, letters, both ways.
And that'll come out in a vote.
Pardon me?
That will come out in a vote. Right. So that's the whole reason that they want the opportunity to vote, because both of those sides will come out in a vote. And that's why
They're
they want
afraid to vote because they know how it'll go.
No, I would not say that a predominant number of the contacts I receive. And by the way, if some of you have now received email returned from me, I did a whirlwind trip to Thailand, got back, and with a new server in the capital had 9,000